What's up, Soul Nation? Ginger Prime here, and today we've got another Blue Protocol video for you, breaking down the information coming out of Japan. Some hot breaking, awesome news, translated by the folks over at blueprotocoldatabase.com. I'm going to include a link in the description below, and I'd love it if you guys go give them some love. Check out their website. They're doing some really good work, especially as it relates to translating Japanese into English, so that way we can talk about all the things that they have learned from the alpha to the beta, and that's what this video is going to be focusing in on. The devs at Bandai Namco have gotten a lot of feedback from alpha players, and they've made some changes, and so we're going to talk about them, and we're going to be covering the news as this game develops, and hopefully in the hopes that one day, one day soon at least, we get to sit here and talk about the release for the West. Anyway, as it goes, we've got lots of information here, and it is also translated, so if any of this changes, we'll be sure to update you. So if you feel like I've earned your subscription, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button and that bell if you want to help us out with the algorithm, but it's all good whatever you decide to do. So let's dive in. So one of the interesting things Blue Protocol is doing is a concept called party versus party, and this isn't PvP. This is where the player's party versus the monster party comes into play. And so the concept is that monsters are going to be teaming up together and assigning themselves roles like tank, healer, and DPS to make the confrontation between us, the players, and them, the monsters, more challenging. And this is partly going to be available in the closed beta test, but this encounter is going to be very interesting, and you're going to see it as it applies to some of the dungeons in the area. Now, regarding character creation, they said they've added additional customization options. This includes hair, makeup, scars, moles, and much more. And we saw that as a part of the last update on their, what I'm calling a live letter or dev update. This is where they kind of showed off the character creation. So the fact that they're adding more hairstyles and makeups and more gives hope, because some of the feedback that I saw even in our own comments of this video is that they want to see more hairstyles. And I get it. Character creation, especially as it relates to a character you're going to spend a lot of time with in case of MMOs, it's important. You want to really kind of try to stand out and make the character that you want. And the visuals with this game truly are incredible. So honestly, the more that they can do, I'm all for it. Now, regarding combat and action, from now on, the monsters are actually going to react to hits and skills that the player uses. And we saw this yesterday in their dev update, where they have kind of that knockback and that stun lock. And that in and of itself is going to make your skills obviously look more impactful. Now, to improve on the overall cooperation of the game itself, they've enhanced the specific role of each of the classes by readjusting the heal-related skills of each class and adding an additional attributes to their skills. So attributes can interact with one another in a certain way, which will further enhance the co-op gameplay. Really cool. I mean, just anything that's going to help us work together, and that's kind of that synergy idea. We see that kind of a little bit in Temtem, so I'm interested to see how this overall plays out, because this could have a huge impact on your build. Because if with your skills and you're assigning all the various things and building out your character, well, that's great, and maybe you're meta in one way. But maybe there's a different meta, and it's going to all relate to how you and your friends play together. Ultimately, I'm speculating, but I can't help it. It gets me excited. They say auto attacks aren't going to require that you actually smash your mouse or gamepad. This game's going to support a gamepad. You can actually hold down to attack option. So that's actually, I think, really good. And the fact that this game is going to support gamepad is kind of a big check on the old very interested box for me. Now, flashy effects like class skills can actually be adjusted or turned off in the options. Climbing and dashing animations are going to be reworked. And from now on, once you hit sprint, your character will auto-sheath their weapon. The iframe duration of dodge skills has actually been increased. In addition, you can actually further enhance the dodge distance by using skill modifications. That's what I'm talking about. The crosshair for character positions were readjusted, and once the weapon is sheathed, a crosshair will actually disappear. Now, in party play, this should actually be easier now to see and target the enemy. So that's all of this so far is amazing news. And regarding enemies, I don't know what I was about to say there. My brain was tripping up on me. Monster movements are easier to predict now, and monsters won't drop any weapons. However, they will drop rare materials, which you can use to craft imagines or upgrade your weapons. Now, we're going to have to dive in more into the different systems of this game as it develops and as we get access to it, so be sure to come back for more of that. So let's continue. Now, classes and skills, based on which class and skill on your hotbar and which imagine and your skill modification you use, you can change the focus of your class. Class roles and skills were adjusted, and new skills have been added, and a skill board system has been added to where you spend skill points and you earn, obviously, the skill points by leveling up. If that's a new concept to you, let me know. I'll be sure to break it down further. But there are two different types of skill points that you can get. One type that can be used for a specific class, and the other one that you can use to spend on all 4 class-related skills and perks. So if you don't know, one character can play the different classes in the game. This is really speaking to me as a fan of Final Fantasy overall. Like, they are really kind of, I'm wondering if they're drawing inspiration. They have to be, right? Ultimately, I mean, everybody draws inspiration from everybody, so. So they continue additional modification or modifiable stats, like a damage reduction to a certain element type, or a certain type of attack, or reducing or increasing abnormal status effects durations have been added. And once you enter some of the dungeons, you're actually going to get some consumables for free. However, you can only use those consumables in that dungeon. Once you're done, they're gone. So that's interesting to see as just a general take. I'm ultimately will be curious to see how that plays out in the long run. They've increased the drop rate of healing potions in the open world, and regarding classes, class quests were added to make class swaps and leveling up a second class much easier. So guarding the field or the zones, essentially, aggro range of the monsters in the open world has been adjusted, and the aggro range will be reduced if you are higher level than the monster. They've added fall damage, and teleport stones have been added to specific areas in combination with the mounts and imagines. So we would or should be able to shorten the travel time between the different areas and places. This is an interesting question that I actually kind of posed to you, hopefully fan of these online RPGs. Sometimes when you actually reduce the overall travel time, it makes the world feel smaller. I'm not saying it's good one way or the other. I kind of go back and forth, depends on the day. If I don't have a lot of time, I want to get to where I want to go. But there is a kind of a beauty in when you have that world that's giant and a little bit unknown, or at least takes you a while to get to different places. I'd like to know your thoughts. I say all that because I'd like to know your thoughts on travel time as it relates to these MMORPGs. Now, they also said that you don't need to actually hold down the F key to gather resources anymore, so you can actually reduce the overall time for for your gathering by also using a liquid memory buff. So regarding sounds in the game, specifically sound effects and background music, they're continually tweaking and adjusting kind of the balance between the background music and skill sounds that were used. And so that's going to ultimately be good. Hopefully we see some control given to us, the players, to be able to kind of like tweak what we want to hear more of. And all in, so far, everything all the sound that we've heard from the game sounds just incredible. I know I've said the word sound probably like 10 times in a row. I do apologize and I beg your forgiveness. So for dungeon matchmaking, this is where you'll learn something about me over time. I have a weird love relationship with matchmaking. I think that within PvE content, you kind of sometimes sacrifice things. However, they do tease that there's going to be like different difficulty levels. And so hopefully maybe this is going to be a system that kind of gives us the best of both worlds. Obviously, as somebody who sometimes you don't have a lot of time, you kind of want to play with somebody, and it's nice to have the system do that for you, especially when it comes to PvP. Finding people to play against is a real benefit. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about their dungeon matchmaking here. They say that Bandai Namco really wants to have kind of a dungeons last anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. However, this clear time might increase depending on the difficulty that you choose for the dungeon. Then they've customized matchmaking, and it's currently available in the CBT, so you can actually search for players or parties who fulfill certain conditions for the content that you intend to do. Now, higher level players who enter a lower level dungeon will be scaled down to match the difficulty of the dungeon itself, and dungeon monsters will now scale properly depending on the player's party size. Matchmaking that is searched, it won't actually be interrupted if someone doesn't accept the matchmaking pop-up, and after clearing a dungeon, you'll be teleported back to the last town you visited. Exceptions are the scenario dungeons though. You will respawn, however, at the closest respawn point if you are logged out in the open world or any other random location. Regarding towns, they said once you enter a town, your hit bar will be hidden. And they're also going to say they're going to give you a new option to show hide your HUD even if you're out of combat. The quantity slider that has been added to kind of make selling items of higher quantities easier, and expressions were added to some of the NPCs, and they showed that off in their latest dev update. It really brings the world to life, hands down. Couldn't be happier with that. Now, the quest and map related different changes. Imagine Research Institute was added, so you can actually use this to craft up imagines. So I just can't wait for you guys to see more of this. So emergency missions in the same zone will be displayed on the minimap, and challenging or channeling time used to transfer the portal was reduced from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. So they have a concept of channels and zones. So if you enter a zone, your chance of actually joining the same channel as your party members is going to be increased. So that's good. Hopefully they keep us all together when we're doing that. Now, I'm reading channels here as essentially instances of the zone itself. So hopefully they don't split us up if we go into the same zone and all of a sudden you're like, you're in instance 5, come to 1. Costume related. Some accessories were added and more accessories are going to be added in the future. Now, lingerie, which were actually tied to costumes, was removed, but in the future, lingerie will be a separate costume category altogether. And yeah, that's going to be a fun, interesting thing to talk about in the future. Now, functions to try clothes is not yet implemented for the closed beta test, and costumes will actually won't have stats. That's really important because that means you can kind of freely create the look and feel of your character. Hopefully it doesn't take too much away from the overall feel and the kind of the gear lust, essentially, where you're like, how did you do that? Ultimately, the game needs to solve that problem, but that's kind of a challenge that most theme park games have anyway. And not saying this is a full theme park, just bear with me. So regarding the UI, they removed the black bar at the bottom of the screen, and they have chat stamp emotes, so macros and shortcut triggers can be customized and chat replies were added. The stamp size in the chats were reduced and stamp spam protection was added, and they have some crafting related changes. Consumables and materials will be stored in a different bag from equipment and costumes. Thank you very much. Identified and unidentified statuses were added to materials, and once you enter a town, those will automatically be identified and moved into your storage. Fascinating and convenient. Very easy, barely an inconvenience. Materials in storage can now be used to craft items. Thank you. Items bought from NPCs will be placed in the bag. Cooldown times were added to healing potions. That makes sense. And regarding the camera, they've said that the insert key can use to be taken screenshots, and screenshots will actually be saved in your documents for the game. Operability, can't even speak anymore, related. Situations in which that pressing and holding the F key was required has been reduced, and now you can rotate the camera without interrupting the auto run, which is handy, and they showed that off just yesterday. Targeting other players in town or field to interact with them was made easier for the gamepad, and gamepad support and operated methods were improved and will further be optimized in future. Other changes, please look towards Final Fantasy for some tips and tricks there, because literally that is just the best MMO that handles controller gameplay support. They've added tutorials, and that's good. And they've also a low quality preset for the graphic settings has been added. There's so much here, guys. This game feels like it's going to be coming up on us pretty quickly, especially as it relates to the just Japanese version. Like I said, we've posted guides on how to get registered for the beta. I wish everybody luck. If you guys have any questions about this game, if you sound off in the comments below. Just keep the conversation rolling. Personally, I'm really blown away by it. I've been fascinated by it, and you're going to see more coverage here on Ginger Prime and even over at Work to Game. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, come back for more if you feel like we've earned your subscription. And like I said, if you hit that like button, you hit that ring that bell, it does help us out with the algorithm, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. Looking forward to hearing what you think, and especially as it relates to the questions that I posed to you in this video. But until I talk to you guys, I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care.